Welcome back to the Daily Drum on WHUR and Sirius XM Channel 141. I'm Harold Fisher. Tonight we are talking about issues that really go to the heart of the quality of life in Prince George's County and just about anywhere else you live. From roads, sidewalks, tree trimming, and grass cutting, and yes, even the big pet peeve for a lot of people, litter and illegal dumping. My guest is the man behind getting it all done, Michael Johnson, director of the Prince George's County Department of Public Works and Transportation. Mr. Johnson, thank you so much for joining this conversation.
Thank you for having me. Glad to be here.
So let's first talk a little bit about the Department of Public Works and Transportation, obviously specifically in Prince George's County. I'm sure there are similarities for those who hold the same title across the country. But as it relates to Prince George's County, what does the department do?
So the Department of Public Works and Transportation really is one of the core service departments in Prince George's County. So we're responsible primarily for maintenance of the public assets, so we maintain roads, street trees, sidewalks, our storm drain infrastructure. And we also provide support to development projects through our engineering group. And then we have some support administrative groups that help to sort of make sure that things flow smoothly within our operations. And then we also operate a transit system through the Office of Transit. So we are really a people-centered and focused department, and that's the charge that we have, and we sort of take that very seriously.
It sounds to me like you're one of those departments that you often don't hear about or even hear from until you need to hear about or hear from them.
I think that's a good way to put it. But we're accustomed to that. And as I mentioned, we are customer focused, so that doesn't really bother us, that much. Everyone, of course, likes praise, but we do understand that a lot of the work that we do really impacts significantly the quality of life of Prince Georgians. And we have made it our focus to really sort of focus on this and to improve within the budgetary constraints that we have and every other department has, like ours, many of these items that are under our charge.
Well, let's talk about those budget constraints, because it's my understanding, and correct me if I'm wrong, but the most recent budget, 2024, was nearly $72 million. That's grants, federal, state, county money, and the like, for a municipality that is as large as Prince George's County. We got a lot of land out there and a lot of people living in it. Is that enough to do the job? And if not, what you mentioned budget constraints, what do you do with $72 million?
Well, pardon me. We I would say that the way that we look at it is not so much to try to say, whether this is enough or it's not enough. And I think that the big difference is that last year we received a significant grant from the U.S. DOT for safe streets. Now, one of the issues in Prince George's County, which everyone is aware of, is the number of pedestrians who are hurt or killed on our streets. Now, while most of those are state roads, the county itself did have a few roads that were sort of dangerous. And we applied for a grant. We got nearly a $22 million grant. And that sort of inflated the operating figure. And that allowed us to sort of focus on several of the roads that were on our high injury network. And these are roads that people have been hurt on in a repetitive, large numbers of people have been hurt on. And it ties into our Vision Zero approach, whereby we really are sort of committed to try to force the numbers down to where we have no pedestrian deaths. It's a tall order, but it's something that we are working on and using creative tools, many data-driven tools, some tried and true tools, and some new ideas, such as near misses. For every person who was hit on a road or unfortunately hurt, if you look at it, there are probably several multiples of that number who had close calls, near misses. So really, the traditional way that traffic engineers would look at a road as being dangerous is that they sort of do it retrospectively. Well, there's a certain number of people have been killed, there's a number of accidents, and that has tried and true, and that sort of work. But we want to add an additional dimension that makes us a little more proactive, so that if we see indications that a road is dangerous, even though people have not been hurt on it, it allows us to take spot safety measures to improve that where we can, where it makes sense to do that, either through spot safety or a full-blown capital project, which those are often more expensive and time-consuming. But we have a mix of solutions in our portfolio to sort of address things like that.
So, Mr. Johnson, you were talking about road safety for a moment, and to be quite honest, I would imagine that the layman, and I consider myself in that number, that most people, when you think about road safety, you think about dealing with police and other public safety officials, but not necessarily public works. And so I think that's really surprising to me. It is also informative. And you mentioned new things, tried and true methods. Give me an example of what is currently working and what has not worked, whether it is, looking, forward thinking, or even looking into the past and some of the things. I find that really fascinating when you talk about road safety. I just was not aware that was the responsibility of the county's public works department.
Yes, if I could just set some context, we have to step back a few decades into really what philosophically was a road designed.
Mm-hmm.
So if you go back as far back as when President Eisenhower built the interstate system, which he had learned from the Great War, the Second World War, that railroads were sort of an Achilles heel to a nation, as the Germans had used that, and the American Air Force was able to sort of disrupt that. So he sort of had the idea that roads were sort of a much safer and more difficult way to sort of interrupt the commerce of the United States, this massive and great country. So the roads, when they were initially designed, were designed primarily for single mode, to move vehicles as quickly as possible in the volume, in as condensed packets as possible, so that you move from A to B in as, at the lowest cost, if you will, right, in that way. Now that was fine. That worked really well until people began to sort of ask the inconvenient questions. Really, what is a road? Is a road really for other users, for cyclists, for pedestrians, for other modes of travel? And the question the answer that they came up with was, yes, a road really should be for all users, except that we had sort of baked in roads that had very straight alignments, very large cartways, as the asphalt, and that could carry vehicles at tremendous speeds. Well, when you mix the two modes together, what you began to find is that your death count began to rise, because the roads were really designed traditionally for motor vehicles, trucks, cars, buses, things of that nature. And what really has, in the philosophical shift that has occurred with roads, you find that even though many of our alignments are already built, and Prince George's County in many parts is built up, has many sort of old and traditional roads and long-standing roads. And what we've had to do is to retrofit those roads to sort of introduce the pedestrian safety component. And we recently adopted an urban street standards, set of standards, where we worked with a variety of stakeholders, SHA, the development community, our planning group, bicycle advocacies, and others, many others, DPI, our sister agency, to come up with sections, roadway sections that are more compatible with the multimodal idea. So this is a part of what one of our divisions, our Office of Engineering and Project Management, where we have our engineering group, traffic safety, our other civil engineering groups, who they worked extensively on that and are sort of part and parcel of the effort to sort of reduce the or to make the roads, this is a better way to put it, to make the roads more multimodal, so that roads are safer for all users. And within this is part of the trouble, I guess, that some of the larger roads, like the state roads, which tend to be designed in the Eisenhower, philosophy, they really, like if you take 214, everyone is aware of that, Central Avenue, 495, and so those roads really are not very compatible currently with pedestrians.
Absolutely not.
Yeah, right, they're sort of.
And let me say, when you talk about context, having grown up in Prince George's County and remembering when Central Avenue was just a few steps up from a country road,
right?
And now with
look at it today,
and with all and the population,
right,
that lives on it or near it,
right.
It has. I just remember back in the 80s. I'm telling my age now. Just that is in my mind. That is when it really began to become a dangerous place because pedestrians had always crossed Central Avenue, especially inside the Beltway on foot.
Right.
But please continue.
No, but that's the point, that even though the volumes are lower, the speeds or if the volumes in particular are low, even if you do have some speeders, if the road is not really designed or it's not anticipated that you're going to have multimodal uses, there are things that really don't make it into the calculus of what the road section should look like. Because the primary thought is that really you want to move as many vehicles as possible. You want a level of service that's a C or better, right? From A to where you can go from A to F, where it's not moving at all, and A is sort of like a really like a country road where you can go very quickly. And these are all ideas that are revolved around the vehicle. Now, in the current thinking, where people are saying, well, listen, roads are not just for vehicles; they are for people who who shouldn't need cars to use them, who may want to walk to their closest or walk to school. Kids who need to walk to school. You may find that many of those roads don't have sidewalks, so they don't have lights. They don't have sidewalks. So you have a kid. Everyone who knows kids have a short attention span. They're playing, horse playing, or just walking along, and you're adjacent to traffic that's going really quickly. So in the country as a whole, you had a surge in the number of pedestrians killed, unfortunately, on the roads. And this sort of sparked the movement to sort of the Vision Zero idea of really want to sort of move it now where you are eliminating the possibility of other pedestrians being killed, cyclists being killed. And it comes, where some retrofits are quite expensive and time consuming, and in some cases very challenging to do because you're sort of retrofitting after the fact. So our engineering department and our Vision Zero office really work hand in hand. We also work with our state partners and other partners throughout the United States to get ideas on what we can do to reduce the number of deaths. Unfortunately, in Maryland, in Prince George's County, the deaths are going in the wrong direction. And I have spoken with SHA about this, some of the concerns we have.
The State Highway Administration.
The State Highway Administration, excuse me.
Hold that point, Mr. Johnson. I've got to take a little break because I know we've only, pardon the pun, scratched the surface of the road, and we have so much more to talk about. But we are going to take a break, and don't forget, you can hear this and every edition of the Daily Drum Insight segment via podcast on WHUR.com. The original Quiet Storm is next on WHUR. I'm Harold Fisher. This conversation continues on Sirius XM Channel 141 in just a few seconds. Welcome back to the Daily Drum on Sirius XM Channel 141. I'm Harold Fisher. We continue our conversation about quality of life issues in Prince George's County, specifically the Department of Public Works and Transportation. My guest is Michael Johnson. He is the director of the county's department. I want to continue briefly about roads, and then I want to get to some other things. Often your layperson does not know who is responsible for what when it comes to roads as it relates to anything. How do you know who is responsible for, like you said, a Central Avenue, a 214, and a I-495 or a BW Parkway? How can someone figure out who to call if there is an issue on the road, pothole, whatever?
So I think there are a couple of ways you could do that. In Maryland, all numbered routes belong to the state. So 214. So if you encounter 193, 202, those are all state roads, just by dint of having the number. Now in Prince George's County, there is, in addition to the State Highway Administration, there's also there are also federal roads like Suitland Parkway, which is like under federal control, and the complaints would be made to them. And then the rest of the roads belong to the county. And that's a simple way. But there's also several portals. The State Highway Administration has a website called Know Your Roads, which if you Google that, it'll give you to a link, and you can click on a particular road of interest, and the ownership of that road will pop up. It's sort of a GIS, Geographic Information System based portal, and that allows us. DPWT also has a pavement management portal called PAMS, the Pavement Analysis and Management System, and that also allows users to determine the ownership of a particular road. And our system is a little better than, in a sense, for Prince Georgians than the state system, in that it also gives, we have sometimes utility companies that are doing work, gas companies, WSSC, Comcast, whoever is doing work, or a developer. And there's quite a bit of information that is codified on the particular road link that you're looking at. So you can see if there's a gas project underway in this neighborhood. And that would sometimes explain why we are not able to pave that road, because we really can't do that with while the work is ongoing. A great example in Prince George's County is Allentown Road, which is currently under work with WSSC. Now, we have received a lot of complaints, but we've worked with WSSC and DPI to sort of improve the patching. But they're doing a massive water main replacement that will provide water security for the southern part of Prince George's. And during that period, it's really impossible for us to do any surface patching or paving, because it would be destroyed by the contractors doing the work beneath the roadbed. So the PAM system is really a useful way to sort of see that.
I want to ask you about the things that are often important to people regarding optics. Let's talk about grass, for example. There always seems to be an issue about high grass, and this is obviously not just a Prince George's County thing, but since we're talking to you, we'll focus on that. High grass, when it's on the side of the road, depending on how high it is, obviously, I'm sure it can hide animals. It can be, problematic, and at the most basic level, it just doesn't look good. How does the county handle that? How often is grass cut? What months? How is that handled?
So if I could just step back a bit, I've been with the county about just a little over 2 years. And when I came in, one of the first charges I was given by the county executive through our administrator was to have the Department of Public Works and Transportation improve the overall litter and mowing of the public right-of-ways, which we're responsible for. So, we revamped the entire program. We did have, contract mowing areas that were mowed with some frequency. In the southern part of the county, which are more open, we had roadside mowing, which was done with a few weeks, 3 or 4 weeks frequency. So we began to work on that very challenging project to not only clean up the litter that was roadside, but also to regularize and make changes as necessary to the contractors doing the work. And what we were able to do is that we have put the mowing on a 2-week schedule. So during the cutting season, which begins somewhere in March, depending how warm it is, like if you have an early spring, grass may grow, but somewhere around the middle of March through, we're coming to the end of the season, probably early October or so like that. The grass in the medians is cut on a 2-week rotation, a 2-week cycle. Now, the reason why that's important here is that Prince George's County has a problem of litter. We're not even the dumping. I'll just speak on litter. Just to give some context to the figures, on an annualized basis, we collect in DPWT about 1.6 million pounds of roadside litter that's picked up from our roads, from these roads that we maintain. Now, if the grass is too high, what tends to happen is that litter tends to be embedded in the grass, and the folks mowing it, like suppose you mow it on a 4-week cycle, they would not see that. Really, they wouldn't be able to pick the litter before they mow, and the mowers will kind of spread it all over, so it looks really terrible at the end of it. So in finding the correct, the sweet spot, so to speak, as to what we would mow, we found that 2 weeks really gives us enough, coverage to keep it looking reasonably well manicured and the litter to be able to be picked up. So that's really how. And then on our roadside mowing in the southern part of the county, we're somewhere around 3 to 4 weeks. Every 3 to 4 weeks, the tractors go through and do the roadside mowing to kind of keep the vegetation down along those, particularly in District 9. That's where a lot of our that's our biggest district, and that's in the southern part of the county. That's where a lot of the roadside mowing is conducted.
Let me ask you about illegal dumping. That has long been an issue in Prince George's County. This issue does not seem to want to go away. Can you kind of characterize the state of dumping? Why do you think this is happening? Where is it most problematic? What are the penalties for this? And just your overall thoughts about that.
Now, illegal dumping is a pernicious problem in many of the urbanized counties, and Prince George's County has its fair share of this problem. The dumping is actually a commercial activity. That's the conclusion that I've drawn.
What do you mean when you say commercial activity? Explain that.
Right. So I'll give an example. Like we work very closely with our partners in SHA. Now SHA near Route 50 in Kenilworth had to remove about $3 million worth of tires, just old tires, from behind the guardrail. There were so many tires there that the guardrail had to be cut and removed for contractors to be able to get in to remove that amount of material dumped. So that's a cost avoidance to a much larger organization. That's not like a person showing up and tossing a tire. That's a truckload or truckloads of tires that in a very organized way is being used to sort of just provide cost avoidance to someone who is probably being paid to dispose of it. So they collect money to dispose of the tire, and they say, okay, I'm going to keep this, right? I'm going to dump it in Prince George's County. So it's a problem in several areas of the county. And we work closely with our sister department in the Department of the Environment, who really has the main charge for dumping and that sort of activity. And what we're trying to do, and what we've begun to do, working with SHA, is to begin to try to use data to help us begin to peel away this problem, so that the layers of this problem, so that we don't become overwhelmed with the scope of the problem. So what we found when we plotted the locations of illegal dumping is that, one, all census tracts. Now, the census tract is a U.S. Census division of a landmass in a way in which they can sort of use to calculate or to record the demographics and other characteristics of that particular. So every part of the United States has a census tract or a census block, if you look at the entire map. So Prince George's County is that way. So we took the census tracts for Prince George's County, and we plotted where where we were finding problems with dumping. And we found that a lot of the problems seem to revolve around the inner Beltway census tracts. Those are closer to Washington, D.C. And so, it's further in some of the outer areas, it's less dense. So the strategy that we have to follow, given that we spend about $2 million a year, every year, which I'd like to spend on something else, picking up litter and getting rid of illegal dumps and things of that nature. So we want to find a more thoughtful way of using that money to sort of eradicate that scourge. And then in addition, the locations of those help us to identify where we can place cameras, because DOE has a camera program that is used to help prosecute dumpers who are sort of participating in this commercial activity. So we're in the beginning stages of working. We're working jointly with the University of Maryland as well, and SHA, to help us come up with what we hope will be a predictive model that, based on land use. So the question that is asked, and you're asking you're alluding to a very good question, like, what causes an area to be attractive to dumpers? Is it because there are no lights? Is it because the line of sight is poor? Is it because it's poorly maintained? Is it related to the land use that is in that area? Like, if you had a lot of fast food restaurants or density of population, does that contribute to litter and dumping? Does that help? We don't know the answer to all of those. Everyone has a guess, a conjecture as to what could or could not. We are hoping that at the end of this exercise, working with our two partners, that we will have something more concrete, which will help us. It's not just a sterile academic study, but it will help us to formulate policy for our department as to where we focus our resources. And my own suspicion is that we will probably spend more, we will not spend the resources evenly across the county, because the problem is not uniformly distributed. It's concentrated in areas, and we would probably surge resources where they are needed, and that would sort of help to sort of break that down. We depend heavily on those who have the police powers to prosecute. We do not have those powers, and we're hopeful that I think DOE has had some great success with being able to prosecute some dumpers, and I think that once that message is sort of like resonates through the dumping community, to call them that, it will sort of help to sort of have a chilling effect on those who choose to come into Prince George's County and do this this terrible thing to our community.
So here's a question. If, let's say, I decided to do a renovation to my house and I lived in Prince George's County, and I decided to get rid of an old toilet and a broken desk. I don't want to put that stuff in my truck. I want to be a responsible citizen. How do I get rid of that stuff? Who do I call? Do you pick up large items like that? What if I have an old dryer, for example, or washing machine that I want to get rid of? How would I get rid of that without putting it in my truck and dumping it in the woods? off of Kenilworth Avenue or off of Central Avenue or someplace like that?
Now, DPWT doesn't really deal with garbage. That's more DOE. But I would say that you would follow the garbage rules which DOE has laid out on their website. And some of the items you identified, if it's construction debris, it often is not something that is picked up curbside. But you can take it to the landfill. There's a landfill at Brown Station Road, I believe, Brown Station Road, and it can go there, I believe. But you would have to follow the rules. I would say that really, the rules are pretty. The website is comprehensive. DOE's website is quite comprehensive, and it tells you for different types of trash how you should sort of deal with that. And I think that overall construction debris might be better put in a dumpster if you're really doing that scale of renovation, and it would sort of be disposed of landfill. But that's not really our area, so I'm not as knowledgeable with garbage.
But you did answer the question, because some people, again, when you're talking about laypersons, they don't know even where to start looking. And they may say, well, let me call the Department of Public Works. Well, now those who are paying attention to this conversation, well, now they know that they can, first of all, they know that they can go to the landfill at Brown Station Road, or if they have other questions, not to call Michael Johnson, but to call somebody, but to call the
Department of Environment. Yeah, they can
exactly, the Department of Environment. So thank you so much. Let me also talk about snow removal. We are just a week or so away from fall, and winter obviously will not be far behind. When it comes to snow removal, what is the standard operating procedure for snow removal? Who gets the priorities? How is that handled? And even before the first flakes fall, when we have a prediction that we are going to get snow and ice and the like, what is the standard operating procedure for your department?
So snow is one of the very large and comprehensive activities or services that we provide. The entire department, from myself to everyone else, works the snow detail, and we work 12-hour shifts continuously until the operation is ended. So if we have like really good contacts with NOAA, who is the National Weather Service. We have also weather services that we also look at. And when we have an advisement of an inclement weather event that is going to impact our area, we begin to strategically plan for the storm. So if the storm is predicted to have low temperatures or ice in some way or something like that, we would begin with brining. That would be enough. If it's not raining. Now, brining is really where you spread a salt solution on the roads. Mm-hmm. And the reason why you do that is that you really don't want the ice to mechanically bond to the road, because once that happens, it becomes very challenging to remove it. You need special equipment, and sometimes if it's really cold, the bond is really strong. It's very hard to get it off. So when you brine, what you do is you put a layer of salty water between the road and whatever falls in it. So we would begin maybe 2 or 3 days in advance of the storm a brining operation. And then we start going into our sort of like a battle plan for the storm. So our teams are set up. Our snow removal is highly organized. We have what's called a yellow shift and an orange shift, and those are really just the 12-hour shifts that are going to work. And we are organized into snow districts. So our snow managers begin to sort of make sure that the contractors who supplement our plowing are on site, that they're loaded with salt, they're put into their plow trains, and they're dispatched to their respective areas. Now, and that operation is sort of run, and then we have a command center, and in that command center we have all the trucks carry what are called AVLs, automated vehicle locator beacons, so that we can see on the road map of Prince George's County where any of our fleet units are at any particular time, where a plow train is. We can also tell whether or not it has made a pass in a particular area. Now, one thing that is important to point out to those listening is that sometimes it takes multiple passes of a plow to bring it down to black. So that we sometimes get a lot of calls from residents. Plow hasn't come by my street. Well, that's not really true. The plow has come by. It just may have made one pass. It may have made two passes, but maybe it needs to make 3 or 4 passes before it'll be down to, bare pavement. Mm-hmm. So that operation is sort of run and, organized and from the command center. And we start with our primary roads, our arterial and collector roads, which are the larger high volume roads. And then our secondary roads, once those are sort of like in good shape, we then move into the residential streets and sort of plow those. And I think that this past winter here was when we really had like a few decent snowstorms. And I was pretty pleased with what the performance was, in that we did not get many complaints of misses. Mm-hmm. Right? They were very minor. And that meant that our AVL technology was working, and that it helped us to ensure that those running the snow operation, myself included, could see where the plows had been, and if there were any misses or areas of concern. We spoke to our district managers and got them to make that repair. Now, one thing that we do, sorry if I could just think, is that on the 25th every year we run what's called a dry run. So the dry run is where we go through, and this year it'll be on October the 25th. So folks will see plows running with their blades on, traveling on the street. There's no snow on the road, but and they'll be going through the routes. The reason for that is that we want the drivers who are gearing up for winter to become familiar again with the routes that they're going to be working on, to look for obstructions such as basketball hoops that might be in the road, roadway plates that need to be anchored if sometimes utility companies don't anchor them, or any other issues that need to be addressed prior to us beginning the snow operation. So this helps us to sort of calibrate ourselves for the winter, because, as I mentioned, this is by far the largest operation that we run. Everyone works. So that's what we work on. So that's really our game plan for dealing with this. And I think our team is in good shape, and we are ready for whatever Mother Nature throws at us. We have a very organized way of dealing with snow.
Let's talk a little bit about storm drains. I know that, again, for the layperson, when you have a conversation about storm drains, your eyes just kind of glaze over until storm drains become a problem. You're responsible for that. Talk to me about why they are important and what the public needs to know about their responsibility as it relates to storm drains, if any.
Now, Prince George's County's soil is naturally impervious in many areas. We have clay in some parts, like the southern parts of the county, Marlborough clay. But in general, quite a few areas of it are fairly impervious. And the significance of that is that it doesn't take a lot of rain for water to sort of be shed off the earth and to sort of, need to be conveyed safely to some detention or to the Chesapeake, ultimately to the Chesapeake Bay where all the water goes. So the storm drains are critical to sort of ensure that areas are kept dry. And things that can help with that is ensuring, like if you put leaves out, or you don't do anything that covers a storm drain or blocks it in some way as best you can, because that really is going to cause the water to bypass it. And if the water bypasses it, it's going to go to some other location that may not be set up to take that volume of water, and then you may have additional flooding. So what we do, and we've worked on we have in our storm drain, we've done a tremendous job. Our associate director, who has worked on that, in terms of clearing. We found that many of the storm drains were not as open as they could have been. They needed to be jet vacked out and debris removed. Some had collapsed. We've been working on assiduously to sort of bring those into a state of good repair, for primarily for the reasons that I mentioned, that we do have a lot of water that is shed. Another compounding factor is that climate change is a real and present factor. NOAA puts out like a prediction on, every year. They had something called Atlas 14, which gave like the rainfall depths for particular types of storms, where it's a 10-year storm. That's a storm that has a repeat factor, repeat period of 10 years on the average. 100-year storms, which are bigger, 500-year storms. They're about to release NOAA 15, which is Atlas 15, which is going to have somewhat different thresholds. They're going to be more severe. And this is directly related to climate change. So our areas can expect more frequent storms, more intense storms. And the conveyance system for stormwater is really important in terms of like keeping our community sort of dry and in good order.
I only have about a minute left, and I know this is a lot to ask of you, but I did want to briefly touch on the county bus system, the transportation system. Are there any new things or enhancements coming? I've got about a minute or so.
Yeah, we are focused extensively on we have a goal by 2035 of having 70% of our bus fleet electric, zero emissions. So we are on track to that. We're in the process of like acquiring electric buses, and we're going through the entire process of doing that and providing the charging network as well for those. And that's a big deal because that really helps in terms of like the emissions, reducing the emissions, which affects air quality, and also noise pollution. Those buses are quiet, and they're not as noisy as the diesel buses, and so those are things. We're also retrofitting the look of the bus, as well as several of the routes, working with WMATA right, in terms of like improving connectivity and trying to make the routes more connected and people useful, people friendly, if you will, so that commuters have better connections and ways to get about the county. Just if I might, I know we have just a few seconds, but we did just launch a street sweeping initiative, which is like for the first time we'll be sweeping residential streets in Prince George's County, and this is a big deal. We've launched phase 1, and it started on Tuesday, this past Tuesday the 3rd. And one of the things that we're trying to reach out and to ask residents as best you can you obey the signs, take a look and sort of relocate your car on your sweeping day. That would help us out a lot in terms of being able to get to the curb and sweep. We are not ticketing or towing vehicles, but we are trying to work with our residents to, pick up that amount of litter that's in the gutter pans. The county has not really swept residential streets in more than 30 years. So there's a lot of litter in the gutter pans, and we are really, it's really important to us to sort of get that up, along with nitrogen, phosphorus, and residual road salt from the winter, which helps the water quality. So I know that just a quick plug for it. I know we're almost out of time, but I think that this is a great program, and we really want it to work. Phase 2 of the program will begin next spring, and please look out for the signs you see there, sort of like mustard colored signs, give you your sweeping zone. Go to the website, and if there are any questions, reach out. That's their ways to reach us, and we'll be more than happy to help you.
And we will make sure that we post the website on our website on WHUR.com after 7 o'clock. Michael Johnson, Director of the Prince George's County Department of Public Works and Transportation, thank you so much for your time. I really appreciate it.
Thank you so much for having me. It was a pleasure.
That is the Daily Drum for this Friday, September 6th. For News Director Renee Nash, reporters Millette Green and Bramante Bryant, I'm Harold Fisher. Good night